Most women think fat loss means eating nothing and training every day. Here's what actually works. I'm Freya, co-founder of Potentio Coaching, a weight loss coaching service that has helped hundreds of women lose weight sustainably. So if that sounds like something you want to achieve, check the description for a link on how to inquire. Okay, so everyone knows you do have to look at your calorie intake in order to lose weight, because we need to be in a calorie deficit. We need to be eating less than we are burning. But often what people overlook is that calorie figure. Most people don't understand the maths. They just think that they need to potentially cut out a food group, e.g. carbs. They think that they might need to cut out sugar. They think that they might need to cut out alcohol entirely. And trust me, when I say, having coached hundreds of women, it is simply understanding the maths that will drive you forward in your fat loss. You do not need to cut out anything completely within your diet. And I'm going to go through how you should work out your calories, and then also why you're not losing weight even though you think you're eating healthily. So how many calories should you be eating for fat loss? The generalized equation that I like to use is taking your body weight in pounds and timesing it by 10. But it's really important that you really listen to your body here, because for argument's sake, with my weight, that would put me on a calorific value of 1,200 calories. But for me, that would be too low because I'm breastfeeding, I'm nice and active. So if you're an active woman, I would consider adding a couple of hundred calories onto this just to make sure it's nice and sustainable. What you could also do is use a calorie calculator, which takes into account your activity level, because we want to calculate how much you're typically burning in a day and then knock off approximately 500 calories to put you in a 500 calorie deficit per day. Honestly, once you understand the maths, you will nail your fat loss. Now, you might have taken a look at what you're eating and absolutely gutted it out, started eating really healthy. Maybe you've started eating really colourful, loads of greens, loads of veg. You might have a handful of nuts every day. You might lace your plate with avocado, eggs, all of the superfoods that you could think of. But what if that's the thing that is keeping you stuck? Your calories are made up of three main macronutrients. You've got carbs, you've got fats, and you've got proteins. Now, your carbs and your proteins have a calorific value of 4 calories per gram. So 1 gram of carbs is 4 calories. 1 gram of protein is 4 calories. However, 1 gram of fat is 9 calories. So when I'm looking at someone's diet when they come to me for help with fat loss, I'm instantly looking at how high is your fat content. What sneaky high fat foods are you chucking into your diet that are skyrocketing your calories? And often that is things like avocado. So let's use this example. It's brunch and you are having scrambled egg on toast with avocado. 1 whole avocado is a whopping 250 calories. Now, avocado is wonderfully healthy. It's a superfood. It's full of really healthy, non-refined, good fat. But it's still really high in fat content. And so that is skyrocketing your calories without you even knowing. We then look at eggs. You may have 3, maybe 4 eggs in your scrambled eggs, plus a knob of butter. Well, a knob of butter may be adding 100, 150 calories to your dish, plus the butter that you then put on your sourdough bread. When we look at eggs, an egg, again, a great superfood, but a yolk is full of fats, albeit healthy fats. And then you've got the white, which is the protein dense part. So if you are having 3, 4 eggs, well, at 70 calories per egg, that can start to add up. So a really good tactic to use is have maybe 2 eggs and 2 egg whites. You're then bumping up the protein but keeping the calories lower. So if you think that you are eating really, really clean but not losing weight, I challenge you to look at your fat content. Maybe you snack on a handful of nuts throughout the day. That's an increase of 100, 150, 200 calories potentially. I think it would be really insightful, and you may see where you're going wrong from a calorie point of view. The main way to control your intake is food tracking. And you may see online a lot of negative energy around food tracking, and that it's obsessive and that it's not enjoyable. But I argue against that. I don't think that there is anything wrong with healthy food tracking where you're not cutting out any food groups, but your tracking is actually helping you to be able to maintain your calories and teaching you how to fit in the galaxy ripple that you want to have at the end of the day. It is showing you what your fat content is like to keep your calories in check. And essentially, it is the thing that is helping bring your scale weight down. So I personally think that tracking calories is really important. It's also important that you can disconnect from that for a day. So let's say you have a social event with your mum or your friends. Like, it is healthy to be able to step away from food tracking for a day and not panic. If you are panicking about your food tracking, yes, maybe you are getting slightly obsessed with it. But as long as you are using it as a tool for learning and being able to just see what your calorie intake is accurately, then there is absolutely nothing wrong with food tracking. Okay, how often do you actually need to train for fat loss? Now, I'm going to split training into two things. The most important thing is not actually your training, it's just your general movement. I would say a really good habit that you can put into your day-to-day life is hitting between 8 to 12,000 steps a day. The more steps you do, of course, the more you will raise your calorie expenditure and the more you will increase your calorie deficit. It is low intensity movement that is not going to spike your hunger. It is not going to make you more tired. It is not going to feel unsustainable, but it is going to raise your calories burn and therefore a really good tool for fat loss. On the other hand, we then have your training. Now, what I will say is even if you don't train, you can still achieve a calorie deficit through controlling your nutrition and increasing your step count. But training can be important for a number of reasons. But from a fat loss specific reason, when you have an increased muscle mass, you are going to burn more calories at rest, and therefore your calorie deficit is going to be easier to achieve. As I've said in a previous video, as the years go on, as we get older, muscle mass percentage decreases. And so we are just combating that process. We are slowing down that process from happening too much to essentially assure that you can achieve fat loss as you get older, or you can maintain your results. You need to train as much as is realistically possible. I'm a mum to an 8-month-old. I work full time. I train 3 times a week. I don't need to do any more. I don't want to do any less. It is just a figure that is right for me and my schedule and my life. So I would say if you could train at least twice a week, that would be fantastic, because then you could target your muscle groups twice in the week. Any more than that, you've just got to make sure that it is sustainable for you and your lifestyle. And lastly, is cardio necessary for fat loss? Listen, cardio can help. Cardio can raise your calories burn in a day. The only thing you have to be mindful of is it spiking your hunger? Is it taking you above your calorie goal because you get home and you're really, really hungry? Is it affecting your step count because you're coming home and you are absolutely knackered and you're just going to then be sedentary on the sofa? If no, then yes, a little bit of low intensity cardio, i.e. an incline walk at the end of your session for 20 minutes, can help. Anything more than that, we need to look at if it's having a knock-on effect on your deficit. The third and final factor in your fat loss is looking at your mindset and lifestyle. You may be a bit of a yo-yo dieter. You may struggle with consistency, and honestly, I think consistency comes down to your tactics. So hopefully after watching this video, you may have realized that actually you've tried to go too aggressive to start with. So scaling that back might be your first point of call. You need to look at your sleep and your stress levels. Stress causes an increase in cortisol, which is our stress hormone, which can cause many things. It can cause hunger spikes, it can cause fatigue, it can cause our menstrual cycles and ovulation to be a bit out of whack. So arguably, if you are in a really high stress job or high stress period of time in your life, I'd really be looking at whether your calorie deficit is sustainable within that, or whether you take a slightly slower approach so that you don't add unnecessary stress to your body. Because if you are really in a heightened position of stress, adding a really big deficit on top of that is going to be a bit detrimental. So really have a think about your tactics and whether they are sustainable in your kind of current mental state. Are you getting enough sleep? Sleep's something I'm going to dive into in another video, but there's so many things that can impact your sleep, but sleep can also impact fat loss. So if you're sleeping poorly, have a think why, and stay tuned for another one of my videos where I'm going to dive into reasons why your sleep might be a bit crap. But at the end of the day, what you have to remember is that slow progress is still progress, and we are not striving for perfection here. We are simply striving for progress. We're striving for 1% better. If you only have 3 days of your food tracked last week, can we track 4 days this week? That is still progress. That is still something to be celebrated. So if you need keeping on the straight and narrow in your fat loss journey, head to the description box below where there is an inquiry link to our fat loss coaching, and we will set you on the right path. Remember to like and subscribe, and I will see you in my next video.